Tennis fans all over the world praying for Coco Gauff to get her second Grand Slam title. Can she do it? Today we're going to take a look. I'm your host, Good Energy. This video is brought to you via the Doctrine of Fair Use to Fair Dealing and the Digital Millennium Act. Come on in, have a look around, like the video, drop a heart, hit the super thanks. Coco Gauff is on a roll to start the new season. She's 5-0. She's undefeated. She's yet to drop a set, and she helped propel Team USA to their second United Cup championship. Coming off of back-to-back 50-win seasons, we saw Coco win 4 titles in the 23 year, starting things off in Auckland. She would then have a rough outing at Wimbledon. But ladies and gentlemen, after losing to big game Sofia Kenin, who she's going to take on here in the first round in Australia, the Brad Gilbert era would start, ladies and gentlemen. Now, rumor has it, after losing to Sofia Kenin, Brad Gilbert was behind the scenes speaking of how Coco could have won the match or performed better. And the rumor has it, Coco's dad overheard the conversation. And of course, Brad Gilbert is a superstar coach, right? One of the youngest coaches to coach a player to a Grand Slam. He was a very unique player, very tricky style, and very tough to game plan against. A lot of people would say Brad Gilbert he wins ugly, right? So rumor has it, while he was just offering some pointers of how Coco could have performed better against Sofia Kenin, how he would have done things or advised her if he was coaching her. It got back to Coco's dad, and he said, hey, would you possibly be interested in coaching Coco? So mom was involved as well during this process, and the rest is history. Brad Gilbert would come on board. Coco would start things off red hot in D.C., right? She would win. And D.C., in case you're not familiar, it's a very historic tournament when we're talking about African Americans, okay? Coco would win D.C., full steam into Cincinnati. She would defeat Iga Swiatek. And ladies and gentlemen, she would head into the U.S. Open on a double-digit win streak and capture her first Slam title on her second Grand Slam appearance. Things would get a little shaky after starting the 24 season winning Auckland, right? We're not going to talk about Cancun. Those courts were just too horrible. I felt the ladies didn't have a true opportunity. All of them, Iga would win it, but I don't think any of the ladies had a true opportunity to showcase their true skills. The playing conditions were just so bad, very windy, wet, rainy. The courts were horrible. I was there, but a beautiful time, but just not good playing conditions. So after winning Auckland, Coco went through a stretch there where just the double faults got really, really bad, right? She started things off on a 10-match win streak, made it to the semifinal here in Australia, which was the deepest she's ever gone. And she really had a chance to win that match against Sabalenka. I felt she would have won that title. It seemed like it would be a pretty good season under Brad Gilbert, but the double faults just got out of hand, right? Having literally the worst double fault season for a top 10 player in the Open era. It was just a nightmare. So, of course, changes had to be made. I've discussed them here, on the channel repeatedly. And just Brad Gilbert being a player, just having that reputation of winning ugly. It felt like Coco was getting wins, but it just wasn't a good fit, right? Just the serve, Brad Gilbert coached some of the biggest servers ever. Andy Roddick, just Andre Agassi. And it just felt that Coco was going too big on the serve. It was affecting other areas of her game, right? Even though Coco doesn't really get tired, you just kind of notice that her stamina and just the way she defended in the past, going big on the serve, it's very draining. It takes a lot of energy. And I just watching her play, it just felt that going so big on the serve and being so frustrated was affecting her defense overall, right? The coaching change was made. Mr. Daly was brought on. Coco has made changes to her grip. She's made changes to her serve. She literally won the Saudi Arabia WTA finals having line markers on her racket in terms of where to hold her hands, right? Where to position her grip, literally markings on it in a matter of literally weeks, having switched to the new coach, Mr. Daly, who's a grip specialist. She went to the WTA finals, adjusting her game on the fly, and she won it by way of Sharpie lines on her tennis racket. Unbelievable. It's just unheard of. It's like, who does that, right? Who takes a Sharpie and marks lines on their racket as a guide on how to hold it, learning a new grip? So nonetheless, guys, that semi-Western grip, we're seeing now that it has made a difference, right? Let's take a look at this matchup with Big Game Sofia Kenin. So the last time they played, Brad Gilbert was coaching. Well, actually, he wasn't technically coaching Coco yet. Pierre Ribas was. But I do feel that, and that was still relatively a new relationship, as he kind of came on right around, that right around clay season, right? Where Pierre came on. And Pierre is, I think he's a good clay coach. I think he's a good motivator. But I think that the big changes came on because Coco wasn't making a lot of those double faults early on when Pierre was there. I think the big changes came on where Brad kind of had that lead head coaching role, right? And from the reports, Pierre was working a lot with he was working a lot with her as well, but he was kind of taking the lead with stamina, and it seemed like, stamina, the physical training, and it seemed like Brad Gilbert kind of took that lead coaching role with, the mechanics, and that's when Coco's game started to really change with the double faults, right? That's when, I mean, historically, she averaged just under 4. That number would just blossom out of control. So fast forward now with Mr. Daly in the camp, right? She brought on her junior coaches as well that really helped her have an amazing junior career along with her father. It's evident that she's more comfortable, she's mentally relaxed, and she's just showing a mental focus that I've never seen out of Coco. I've never seen her this laser locked like this. I've never seen it. And that's scary, right? Because she's, in my personal opinion, and I don't even think this, I think the consensus would agree. Right now, she's just better than everyone on tour. Rankings aside, okay, if we want to talk about rankings and points, okay, she's a third plus best player in the world, third best player on tour. But having defeated Sabalenka and Coco, it seems, and we're talking more recently, right? Having defeated Iga twice in the last couple months, having defeated Sabalenka at the WTA finals, it's clear that Coco's the best player in the world. It's not even a doubt, right? She's playing the best. She's in the best form. She looks the best. And let's start off with this matchup with Sofia Kenin. Can Coco win the Australian Open? That is the big question. Now, first, I want to look at the matchup with Sofia, right? So the last time they played was Wimbledon. Different coaching technique, different game plan, different mental focus. Now, big game Sofia Kenin, I don't think she's looked great, right? She's kind of playing how Coco was playing. She's winning ugly, right? So starting the year off, she's 3-2. Sofia Kenin, she beat Lulu Sun, which is a great match. Went 3. She was down early. She beat Anna Blinkova, another tough match, went 3 sets. But she lost to Maya Joint. Now, you guys follow the channel. I've been telling you about Maya Joint, right? I've been telling you she's someone you want to watch out for. She was born in She's born in Michigan. She is a resident of Australia. She's back in the United States, going to college. I could be wrong. I think she's going to Texas. I don't know. I could be wrong. Texas or Virginia, one of them. I want to say Texas, but I could be wrong. So she's back in the United States. She's going to college there. Good player. I'm very familiar with their game plan, her style. But I've told you guys, you better watch out for her. She's a good player, right? Every time I say it, it comes true. Now, she beat Sophia Kenin in straight sets, right? Good young player. That bothers me, right? Because even though Maya's good, she's a good, solid player, good opponent, to beat a former ranked number 4, right? Maya's never had a ranking higher than 110. To beat a former, and those upsets happen around this time, right? You got someone like Sophia Kenin, who's an Australian Open champion. It's not that it's, not that they're not giving their best or their hardest effort, but sometimes they want to get settled in a slam. They want to get checked in to where they're staying. They want to get used to the courts. And when you're going deep in previous tournaments, it's just look, watching so much tennis, covering so much tennis, when you're going deep into these lower level tournaments and you have a slam coming up, if you are not there taking care of, especially a former slam champion like Sophia Kenin, who won the Australian Open, if you're not there checked in, practicing on the course, taking care of your press and media obligations, when you're a former champion at a slam, that obligation to press and media, it's different than an average player. Unless you're Coco, Iga, Sabalenka, one of these big stars, if you've won that slam before, and I would say possibly the exception is possibly Coco, Iga. Sabalenka did win it before. So I would say of the top 10, the exception is Coco and Iga, right? Unless you're those two rock stars. Someone like Sophia Kenin, she's going to have press obligations, right? As a former champion, she's going to be doing a lot. So you want to get there early. You want to settle in, because with all that press and media obligations, you still have to make time to practice, right? So I could see how playing these lower level tournaments, knowing you have to get to Australia and get settled in, I could see how you could lose focus and lose the match to Maya Joint. I could see that. But on the other hand, someone like Sophia Kenin, I don't think she has the luxury to not play her hardest or lose focus, even in a match like that in the quarterfinal, when the reality here is she's ranked 80th, 81st. And I talked about last year coming into the 24 season, how she should have shut it down so she didn't come into the 24 season injured, and she's ranked 81st. So she needs points. So when I look at a match like that, where how she lost in straight sets to Maya Joint, it bothers me, okay? It bothers me a lot because she beat her pretty bad. 6-2 in the first set and a breadstick in the second set. So I think Sophia did lose focus there. I think she was thinking ahead to Australia. Well, now she's here, and it's not going to get any easier because she's taking on Coco Gauff, the future of tennis. The head-to-head, yeah, Sophia does lead, right? She won 23 at Wimbledon. Coco won in Auckland early that year before and she beat her in straight sets, before she defended her championship. And they also played the Australian Open when Sophia Kenin won it. A very young Coco, a 16-year-old Coco, still took Sophia Kenin to 3 sets, right? This version of Coco, I think it's a tough match. And Coco's got some slam champions in her draw. But this version of Coco is going to win this match in straight sets. She's going to serve really well against Sophia Kenin. Kenin's going to be on the back foot. Kenin's going to try to step up mid-court, right? She's going to try to come cross-court. She's going to try to use her short balls, which is not going to work. Coco's form is just too good right now. Coco's going to put every one of those short balls away. But Sophia Kenin's going to try to Sophia Kenin doesn't really have a lot of pace, a lot of fastballs that I feel can back Coco up behind the baseline. She's got good range, but Sophia Kenin is going to beat Coco mid-court, coming cross-court, and playing keep away from Coco mid-court. She can't go deep with Coco. She doesn't have a lot of power to frustrate Coco. And the fact that Coco's serving a lot better, she's playing deep with her forehand and her backhand. Sophia Kenin's just not going to be able to return this firefight with Coco. She's not going to be able to match the athletic ability with Coco. Coco's going to defeat Sophia Kenin, and she's going to tie that matchup at 2-2. In the round of 64, she's going to see Jody Burge is in, but I think Leola's playing a little bit better right now than Jody Burge. I think Leola wins that matchup, and we're going to go back to the U.S. Open a few years ago where Leola hit Coco with a drop shot. Coco fell down mid-rally, got back up, returned the drop shot as she chased it down. She won the point. Leola looks at the camera and said, "What the f?" Called the match hilarious. Coco's going to beat Leola, who hasn't looked good. She's made it through qualifiers, but she's been pushed to the limits. Coco's on another level. Coco gets past that, makes it to the round of 32, which is possibly going to set up another matchup with, I would probably say, Leylah Fernandez. Leylah, I love, long hair, don't care. But Leylah Fernandez is just not really... It's just a bad matchup, right? Because Leylah's returning and to Coco's backhand. You're playing into Coco's strongest shot. Just a bad matchup. So I think Coco gets past Leylah Fernandez. That's going to possibly set up a matchup with Muhova, Osaka, or Caroline Garcia. One of those two. Maybe even Yelena Ostapenko. Let's start with Ostapenko. We saw Ostapenko cover the matchup a couple years ago, defeated Coco here. Coco fell down, very frustrated. Not going to happen. For one, I don't think, and Ostapenko, she loves to throw some shade. You know, remember she won, what was that? I want to say was that the Upper Linz? I think so. Coco won her first title against Ostapenko, in case you don't remember. 15-year-old Coco won her first main tour title against Ostapenko. And Asta would win it, last year? And she would say, yeah, this is her voice. Yeah, I was here before, but I think my trophy looks better. I lost here before in the final, but my trophy looks better this year than that one. Throwing shade at Coco. I think Coco beats Ostapenko like she did at the U.S. Open. Ostapenko's not in good form right now, early in the season. I don't think the fastball is going to be an issue. Mr. Chris Eubanks, one of Coco's hitting partners, Coco said it best. When I'm returning Chris's shots, Ostapenko or Sabalenka, their shots don't seem hard at all when I'm playing them. So this is how the tide's going to turn. And I mean, I can't really say the tide's going to turn. It's Coco's at one point owned the head-to-head against Sabalenka 4-2, a younger Coco that wasn't as good as this version of Coco. So my personal opinion, she's telling you, because a lot of people don't really, they just assume Coco should be winning slams. And since she's not winning slams, they assume the hype is not real and that Coco's not this great player. She is. And she's telling you that Sabalenka's balls, even though she hits hard, as Sabalenka starts to age and continues to get up there in her late 20s, even though Coco's dominated that head-to-head early on, and right now Coco leads, 5-4, that's going to continue to go in Coco's favor, that matchup with Sabalenka. It is, because as she's already told you, her balls don't seem that fast, right? So she's not afraid of it. Right, like a lot of players that Sabalenka can overpower, they hate playing her, and she's a tough matchup. I'm not gonna say she isn't, but as her footwork starts to slow down and her power starts to diminish a little bit, because the older she gets, she's not going to retain that power. It doesn't work that way, in female athletics. Tennis is a young woman's sport. We know that, And that's how you're seeing a lot of these younger players, Maya Joint over Sophia Kenin. That's how these upsets happen. These young, you take a young 18, 19, 20-year-old professional playing a 27, 28-year-old female professional, unless you're Madison Keys or a Sabalenka or Ostapenko, those would be your exceptions. The average player in their upper 20s that doesn't have that type of strength, these younger players are going to outpower them, right? It's like, if this were a weight lifting contest, you take these younger females that are 18 and 19 that are still growing, they got a lot of their strength, they're going to outlift these older ladies. It's as simple as that. But the exceptions are these heavy hitters that's been striking the ball so heavy for so many years. But genetically, athletically, age-wise, they're supposed to slow down, right? So it is always questionable when you see some of these ladies in their upper 20s, early 30s that's still able to maintain this power because, again, these players like Sabalenka, I do expect them to start slowing down. It's going to happen. But again, you once in a lifetime, you have these genetically gifted athletes. And I will say Sabalenka is one of them. As long as I've been watching Sabalenka, she's been a very hard ball striker. That's not going to change. And she also, I don't know if she was throwing shade at Iga Swiatek. I guess they're working on that relationship. But she says she does believe in a clean sport. But she kept that very brief, though. She didn't want to elaborate on that. She just kept that part short. But listen, guys, I think Ostapenko is not going to be a matchup as we pivot back to the matchup that could be. Just like the U.S. Open, I think Coco dominates Ostapenko. That 1-2 down the line forehand, that's not going to work because Coco's serving better. She's using a lot more situational serving. Jam her up in the body, and Ostapenko, it's gonna be a long match for her. That's if she gets past Belinda Bencic, who's in a lot better form. She can handle the fastball, and quite frankly, the world ranked former number 4. That's a matchup where I think Belinda and her fastball, she could frustrate Sabalenka and beat her, to be honest with you. I always talk about Belinda. What do you guys that follow me, what do I say about Belinda? She's one of the hardest baseliners on tour. That's not a joke. She's so strong and powerful. And even though she doesn't move that well against the more athletic players, I think she's going to have the footwork advantage over someone like a Yelena Ostapenko any day of the week, right? So I think Belinda could very well beat. The head-to-head is 1-1. They last played at the Australian Open 4 years ago when Coco was 16, and Belinda won that in straight sets. So I could very well see Belinda defeating Yelena. If so, I think Coco, without a doubt, makes it to the quarterfinal just without dropping a set, to be honest with you. I think the only challenge that she could have would be possibly an Ostapenko. I do want to talk about Caroline Garcia, who, if she gets past Osaka again, I don't think Caroline Garcia would be an issue with Coco. Caroline is one of those players, though, that has frustrated Coco because she loves to speed opponents up. She plays so fast, coming vertically inside the baseline with power. That's very difficult to return. It's very difficult to defend because it's such a fast ball coming forward. And that's just not really her game is not traditional. Caroline Garcia is not a traditional player. And you mix in with how well she serves. It's Caroline's athletic ability, right? With her style. It's very unique. And she's very tricky to deal with. That's why Coco struggled with Caroline Garcia. However, at this point of her career, she's aging. Her power is slowing down. Her serve hasn't really been that aggressive. I don't think Coco has this informed Coco that's serving well, that's defending well, that's striking the forehand well. I don't think she has an issue with Carolyn Garcia. I think the real question is, can Osaka get past Carolyn Garcia? Now, Osaka has made it clear that her and Carolyn Garcia aren't really like friends, but as much as they've been playing each other, she's like, we're kind of like besties now, right? That's a joke. So, and again, she was taking shots at the tour, at the matchmakers for continuing to schedule this matchup. And the reality here is they're now being funny by doing it again. Do we really want to see the matchup? Is it kind of a rivalry that's starting here? I guess you can say so. Now, I saw the last time they faced each other at Miami, and there's a lot of rain off and on. The crowd wanted Osaka to win, but I knew Carolyn would win the match. And Osaka was down. She was bummed, right? 'Cause she's starting her comeback. Everyone wanted to see her in Miami, especially when she's on American soil. People want to see Osaka. Last year, she did get the win in Doha against Carolyn Garcia in straight sets, but Carolyn beat her at the Australian Open. And the first round, she was out of there. Two-time champion here. I think she beats Carolyn Garcia this time. I think she should have won the Miami match. Went to the tie break. She had her. Even the second set was close. It went 12 games. I think Osaka beats Carolyn Garcia. I think she's in a little bit better form. Are we concerned with the injury? I would be more concerned the deeper she goes in the draw, right? A back injury, it's going to flare up the more you're using it, the more you're playing, the more you're active. The first round, I think she'll have enough treatment, enough rest and recovery to play at a high level, but it's going to catch up with her deeper in the tournament. So I do think Osaka gets past Carolyn Garcia. The problem is playing someone again like Muchova that's going to make her work. That's where I think the back injury could come into play. Carolyn Garcia she loves to come forward. She loves to, hit her forehand. She serves well, but if Osaka is able to get her way with those rallies, she's going to beat Carolyn Garcia. Deeper the rally with Carolyn Garcia, you can outpoint Carolyn Garcia. You know what I mean? So I think the problem would be after getting past Garcia is Muchova, who's going to make you work. Muchova's going to make you run, come forward. And that's what Osaka doesn't like to do. That's what we saw when they faced each other at the U.S. Open, and I told you how that would go. I think Muchova would get past this Osaka. That's when I think her health would be an issue. So in simple, we're going to have a showdown here between Coco and Muchova. And in my personal opinion, I think it's going to go the same way it's gone. I did talk last match, though, that you can't keep beating someone. Eventually, they're going to make adjustments. Eventually, you may let your guard down a little bit, and they're just going to beat you, right? You can't continue to beat someone. They're going to get better. They're going to progress. They're going to put together a game plan. Because you're doing what you do well. They can see what they're not doing well, and they're going to make adjustments. But that's not going to happen here. Excuse me, guys. Not going to happen here. I think Coco's just too dominant against Muchova. If it does, if that upset happens, it's not going to be on hard. It's going to be possibly on clay. And I think it would have to be on clay, where that variety of Carolina would work a little bit better. But not on hard, where Coco's just, the surface is too fast. Coco is just too explosive. Muchova's she's approaching her 30s. This is not going to happen. There's a big difference on hard and their abilities. It's not going to happen. Muchova, much like Layla, plays into the strengths of Coco. So I have Coco getting to the quarterfinals. And this is where things will get pretty darn interesting. So as of now, I see Coco, and I posted the poll in the community. I do think her draw, it's tough just for the fact that you have Grand Slam winners in it, right? Sophia Kenin, you have Osaka, you have Muhova, who's made a slam final. You have Ostapenko, who's won a slam, also made a slam final, and you have a gold medalist. So just from the achievements of the players in her draw, it seems tough, but the reality here is there's no one, at least to the quarterfinals, that I think will even challenge this version of Coco, right? I don't think Sophia Kenin is going to challenge Coco. I don't think Leola John or Jody Burge is going to challenge Coco. I don't think Paquette or Buxa. I don't think Leila Fernandez, Startup Seva. I don't think Muhova Podoroska. I don't think Susan Lemans. I don't think Belinda Bencic is going to challenge Coco. Although it could be a match, but I don't see it. I don't think Yelena's going to challenge Coco. It would be really Muhova or maybe Osaka. We saw the matchup in Beijing where Osaka was up a set in a break and her back gave out. And I told you, I do think an M-form prime Osaka that's healthy without any injuries, I think she's going to challenge Coco. And quite frankly, I think if Osaka's in form and in shape, I do think Osaka can beat anyone on tour any given day. She's that good, but not this version of Coco. I don't think with the struggles that Osaka's had in Auckland, Coco's playing on another level. And I personally do think Coco will win the Australian Open. A couple of weeks ago, she was plus 550. Now that's dropped. Now it's like, what, plus 350? So a lot of people are backing Coco. I'm backing Coco. The overall reason why I think Coco wins the Australian Open, and I told you she was my pick to win it last year, right? She made it to the semifinals. But this year, there's just no one on tour. I think the tour, as long as I've been covering tennis, especially, these ladies here, this version of the elite ladies, these ladies on tour right now, I don't see any of them challenging Coco this season. I just don't. I don't think, let's look at some of the players that beat Coco last year, right? Even though it was an amazing 50-win season. I don't think Anna Kalinskaya is challenging Coco this year. I don't see it. She went 3 sets, still almost lost to a lesser version of Coco. I don't think Maria Sakkari, who defeated Coco at the Indian Wells, is beating Coco this year. Sakkari is just not going to happen. I don't think Sabalenka, who defeated Coco at the semifinals of the Australian Open last year, is beating this version of Coco. I don't see it, right? If you can handle Sabalenka's fastball, there's not much she can do to overpower you. Sabalenka overpowers her opponents. If you can handle her power, now she has to defend. And her best defense is her serve and forehand. Her best defense is her offense, right? She's not great at the net, even though she's working at it. I do think her drop shot is an advantage for her height and reach, the way she can clear the net. But it's just not something she wants to do. She wants to overpower you with her forehand. If you can handle her power, she has to defend, and you can score points. She's going to slip up and make double faults and break, right? So I don't think Sabalenka's going to be an issue, right? We take a look at Wimbledon, a couple exits, U.S. Open. Emma Navarro, I don't think Emma Navarro was ever really a challenge for Coco. I think it was the game plan. You're game planning incorrectly against Emma Navarro. Again, much like Iga Swiatek, let Coco go out there and play her game. Let her natural ability and her instincts kick in. You don't need to game plan too much because you're making a faster player, a more athletic, superior player who thinks on a fly in milliseconds. Now you're forcing her to slow down and have to calculate and think, right? Tennis is a sport where, yes, you do have to think quickly, but when you take away someone that's highly talented and gifted like Coco, her intuition, her ability to adjust on the fly, and now you slow her down and program her with a set of functions like she's a computer program, and now you're taking away her speed. That's a disadvantage. I don't think Emma Navarro, and Emma Navarro said it best when they faced each other last year in Auckland. She said, I just wasn't ready for Coco. Because that was Coco just playing her game. Was no game plan. She's going out there playing, problem solving. She's better than, she's just going to beat most of her opponents because she's better than them. That Wimbledon match, the US Open match, not only was the double faults an issue, like record-breaking double faults, she gave literally Emma like 4 or 5 service games. Take that away from good serving. She's not going to hang around with Coco. Take away giving her free 4 or 5 service games. Coco now is winning those games because he's not down. Coco wins in straight sets. Okay, so that's another opponent she lost to. That's just not going to happen. And, you factor in, the losses to Iga. I don't see those happening. Why? I think Iga's slowing down. I think Iga is bottom heavy. This is my personal opinion. I think she's very bottom heavy. And I think eventually when she's unable to defend her French Open championship, she's going to have a huge confidence. We hear Iga telling these, stories to outlets, allegedly, that she doesn't love tennis like that. And I told you guys, I'm telling you, she's gonna walk away before she's 30. So once she's not able to defend her French Open championship, she's already getting a lot of heat from the media. If her performance starts to decline, and I've told you how unlike someone like Coco, who's naturally athletic and gifted genetically, that speed is not going to go anywhere. Iga Swiatek's footwork from her injury in junior, she had to work really hard to get to that level from an injury. And when you're at a high level from having worked hard, yes, she's naturally gifted as well. Her dad was an Olympian, a great athlete. But when you work harder to improve your speed, your stamina and all that, you have to then keep that level up, but then you have to step that level up and maintain that type of physical activity to be on that level. Why? Because you factor in how she changed the tour, her play in 22 and 23 and even 24 changed the level of the tour to where the top elite players, even the players outside the top 20, 30, 40, 50, had to work harder to get better, to gain points, to gain game checks, to stay relevant. Iga increased the level of the tour from her amazing play. Now that she's on the decline because there's nowhere to go but down, she was so high up, right? She was way up. There's nowhere to go but down. You figure that now she has to work even harder. And then the injuries start to come in. Her thighs are wrapped up, the knee problems, right, guys? Now she's bottom heavy. She's training hard. She's training harder, overexerting herself. There's media, there's rumors, there's steroid allegations. Famous tennis players, athletes, Hall of Famers, they're all chiming in saying, oh, something doesn't seem right here. Now her confidence is down. She's giving opponents confidence now because they feel they can beat her. They feel that wasn't real or natural. So now they're playing harder. Tennis is a mental sport, very heavy mentally. So now these players that weren't confident mentally feel they can beat Iga because they have the mental confidence now. Iga makes a mistake, their opponent gains momentum. Now Iga's losing more matches. It's a spillover effect right now. Now Coco has that mental confidence. Watching that match when Iga broke Coco each set, but Coco was never frustrated because she sees playing Iga now and she's confident that she can beat Iga. She beat Iga the last 2 times in straight sets. That's pretty convincing, guys, right? So now Coco has that confidence. And again, that little edge, all it takes is a media story. And, now you see someone's not invincible anymore. That, Mike Tyson, he's the great example where he went into all these fights mentally having his opponent shook and scared of him. Once that mental edge left, that was it, guys. Bye-bye. Because Mike's stamina, when, in his older years, or even some of his younger years after, Gus and, his initial trainers, Teddy Atlas, his stamina was not good, right? So you factor in Iga, who I don't think Iga's stamina is good. I've always talked about her stamina. It's my personal opinion, right? Fair criticism. I've always said her stamina is not good. You can tell she's holding her players up. She's holding her opponents up like crazy. She's trying to catch her breath, guys. So you factor in her getting older, slowing down the stamina, you're going to get injuries, you know? So, and I'm telling you, this, I think that head to head, I think they play each other this year a few more times. You know, by the end of next year, that head to head is going to be pretty even. You know, Iga's what, it's like 11-3 now, something like that. 11-3, I think, give or take a few, one or two. It's like 11-3. They play each other 3 times this year, 3 or 4 times next year. Now you're looking at 11-9, and that's the turning of the tide, ladies and gentlemen. But I think Coco wins the Australian Open. I don't think Sabalenka is going to be an issue. I don't think Iga's going to be an issue. I took Coco to win it. I took her to win it. It was 550. You know, going into these big tournaments, the players that are playing the best, the players that are confident, and Coco's got all the haters. They're now joining Coco's team. Coco's got the media on her side. She's got the sponsors, the endorsements. Everyone wants to see her win. She's confident. This is her time, guys. And I think Coco's going to win this Australian Open Championship. And if Coco wins this Australian Open Championship, she's going to be guaranteed at least number 2. Depending on how far Sabalenka and Iga go, she could even make number 1. She's going to need early exits from Iga and Sabalenka. As long as Sabalenka doesn't make it to like, what, 1, 2, 3, I want to say the 4th round, early exit from Iga, she wins the Australian Open. Coco's number 1. Simple as that, right? At minimum, if she wins it, she'll be number 2. And then you see Iga slowing down. I don't think Iga's going to defend all 5 of her titles this year. Iga slows. Coco wins the Australian Open. If Iga does not defend her title at the French Open, Coco's number 1 by default, right? But early exit here from Ekaterina, which I think is going to happen, then Coco could very well be number 1 as well. So, but stay tuned. I'm going to break down every matchup. I hope you guys like that. So that's coming. Probably do that maybe tomorrow for you guys. And we're especially going to be taking a look at Coco Kenin. I'll break that down as well. But I got Coco winning the Australian Open. Comment below, guys. Like the video. Show some love. Hit the super thanks. We'll be back.